Welcome back to the Around the World podcast. This is episode 7, our third episode in season of this NBA season. We've got undefeated teams, we've got winless teams. Every team has now played 5 games. So let's go ahead and jump right into what we are going to talk about. The main topic of today is the biggest surprise so far this NBA season from a team, but we always start with our community question, which this week is going to be your ideal starting 5 cast for the Netflix series Starting 5. They just released who's going to be on season 2. It is Tyrese Haliburton, James Harden, Kevin Durant, Shea, and Jaylen Brown. My personal ideal starting 5 also includes KD and Shea. I love that, but I would replace Jaylen Brown, James Harden, and Tyrese Haliburton with Jalen Brunson, Steph Curry, and Victor Wembanyama. So be sure to let me know what you guys think of that starting 5 cast. I've heard a lot of things about the whole Tyrese Haliburton, the decision to go with Tyrese Haliburton. Not too many people are happy with that, but hey, I like Tyrese Haliburton, so I'm not going to complain. But my ideal starting 5 is Brunson, KD, Shea, Curry, and Victor Wembanyama. Now, let's get into the meat of the video and the main topic of the video. Our biggest surprise so far this NBA season, and this is teams only. I'm sure I'll do players at some point in the coming weeks, but this is going to be team-based. I have 4 teams that I could debate are the biggest surprise so far this season, and then 2 honorable mentions. These can be either positive starts or bad starts. First team on the board is a team I think definitely has a case to be the biggest surprise so far this season, and that is the Chicago Bulls. A 3-2 start. I think we obviously expected some changes around there. When you lose a guy as big as DeMar DeRozan, you start to go a little younger with, Kobe White, Ayo Dosunmu, but I don't think anybody expected them to look this solid. They're currently the 3 seed out east at a 3-2 start. But I think the main point and why a lot of Bulls fans and just people in general are enjoying watching the Bulls when they haven't for the last 3-4 years is because they are finally playing with pace. Some of the reason they were so slow is because they had DeMar DeRozan, and he just isn't really a pace guy unless he doesn't have the ball. Like when he's with the Kings, he gets to play fast because he doesn't really have the ball as much unless he's going to get a bucket. With the Bulls, he was really, really on-ball heavy. So they played super, super slow, and that is not the case anymore. Giddey's on ball, Lonzo's injured, but he also helps improve the pace. Kobe White helps improve the pace. They just not only look better as a team, they're actually more fun to watch, and I don't think anybody expected that coming into this season. I'm going to turn my ringer off on my phone here. It's a crazy start. It is a crazy, crazy start. I would not have expected, especially if you look at their schedule, who they're playing, I would not have expected them to be 3-2 and be the 3 seed. Now, is it going to hold up? That's an entirely different story, and I highly doubt it. But I think for Bulls fans, it's an exciting time because now with the young guys up and coming, like I mentioned, Kobe White, Ayo Dosunmu, you even have Modest Buzelis, who hasn't played a bunch of minutes, but Modest Buzelis, when he continues to progress, even if you guys are kind of stuck in that mediocre area, you're no longer stuck in mediocre with age, you're stuck in mediocre with youth, so you always have the hope of, well, we could put it together one of these seasons and see a couple jumps from these players, and all of a sudden, wouldn't you know it, now we're back in the fight in the Eastern Conference. So the Bulls are the first team I have as a big surprise. Second one, again, all these teams have arguments for being the biggest surprise, and this one is the Cleveland Cavaliers. 5-0 starts. They haven't played the best competition in some of these games. They do have wins over the Pistons and the Wizards, but they actually look legit. I think the best part about it is it's night-to-night differences. We saw Garland have a 30-point game the other night. We've seen games where Jared Allen has gone off, where Evan Mobley has gone off. Mitchell really hasn't had like a big night yet, but I mean, at any point, Donovan Mitchell can turn up and drop 35+, maybe even 40+ in a night. If they can stay healthy, they truly do look really, really good. And I know it's early in the season, but these wins still matter. Getting that win over the Lakers, getting that win over the Knicks, although, sure, the Knicks don't look like they're perfect right now, and the Lakers started great, but have since kind of backtracked a little bit. It's still important to get those wins now so that if you do hit a rough patch or a slower patch in the season where, say, maybe you go 5-5 over 10 games or 4-6 or whatever, you already have the bump of being 5-0, 6-0, 8-1, 9-2, that type of thing, that you can afford a slower stretch and still be really high up in the conference. I'm very, very excited for them. I'm really hoping they can stay healthy. They look very legit. This team is complete from top to bottom. Starters, bench, guards, bigs, it doesn't matter. They look very, very complete. We talked about Trade rumors with them, I don't see them being in trade conversations right now for anybody like Brandon Ingram because they have had absolutely no problems at all to start the season. Incredible start for the Cleveland Cavaliers. Next up on the list is our one negative start of the 4 teams that could be considered the biggest surprise, and I'm sure you all know who it is already. I've talked about them in the panic video, and that is the Milwaukee Bucks. 1-4, currently tied for last out east with the Pistons and the Raptors. Not what you would expect. And I mentioned some of these losses are brutal, but some of them you can understand. You can understand losing to the Celtics. Okay, fair enough. Pretty much every team in the NBA is probably going to lose to the Celtics this year. It's very unlikely that a team is going to go undefeated against the Celtics. But then you look at some of their games. 15-point loss to the Nets. Lost to the Bulls, although the Bulls do look pretty solid so far this year. But the biggest one came last night. You play the Memphis Grizzlies, who are massively, massively resting guys. Injuries, rest, whatever you want to call it. They are not playing anywhere near their true team. And you not only lose to that team, you get embarrassed by them. The Grizzlies absolutely destroyed them. Ja dropped a triple-double. They got embarrassed. They got absolutely embarrassed the other night against the Memphis Grizzlies. Like I said, now they're 1-4. Dame, I just saw a stat, has 41 made free throws on the season. 41 free throws attempted on the season. 33 made field goals to start the season. What the hell is happening? What is going on? Dame goes 1 for 12 last night in a game that you wouldn't expect it. Like, it's not like you're playing a Celtics where it's like, oh, you're going to have Drew Holiday, Derek White on you all game long. Not that the Grizzlies are awful defensively, but they definitely don't have someone good enough to be holding Dame to 1 for 12. And I mentioned this last episode. Outside of that performance from Dame, they've not really looked that bad. Giannis and Dame, have not really looked that bad, and they're still just losing games. In my opinion, there's no question Doc Rivers needs to be fired. You look at Adrian Griffin. Yes, the Bucks players did not like him, but they were 30-13 with him. That's a great record. That's a phenomenal record in any conference. And since getting Doc Rivers, they're below 500, I believe. We lost. I understand the playoff series. You can't really blame Doc Rivers for because you had no Giannis last year. But you had the playoff series loss. You have being under 500. You have this start. And as JJ Redick said a year or two ago, no accountability from Doc Rivers. I haven't heard a comment from the Bucks at all, from Giannis or Dame or Doc being like, no, we need to step it up. Like, it's literally just losing and moving on. And that's ridiculous. This cannot be happening. Now we're hearing rumors about Giannis maybe wanting out. You go from being a franchise legend, a guy who wanted to stay there for his whole career, and now there's rumors that you want to be out because you guys refuse to fire Doc Rivers. And I hope he's gone soon. Doc Rivers had a great career, but I think his coaching career, at least right now, is at a point where it needs to be considered that he should be done. I'll move on from the Bucks because I'm going to talk about them plenty more throughout the season if it continues to go like this, and I'm sure we're going to have trade rumors and coach firings, all that sort of stuff throughout the season. So I'm going to leave it there for the Bucks now and get to a more positive note, which is the Golden State Warriors. A 4-1 start, win without Curry the other night, who is out for the rest of the week. But this team looks good, and I talked about how I think their offseason moves were solid. They didn't make any big splashes like a Lauri Markkanen like we originally heard, or LeBron, the rumors from last year, or anything like that. But they got all the things they needed, and especially Buddy Hield. He has completely rejuvenated his career with Golden State, and I'm surprised that his agent or whatever never put him with Golden State sooner. I understand, I guess Klay Thompson was there for a long time, but this could not have been a more clear and obvious fit than Buddy Hield going to the Warriors. It is absolute perfection. He looks so incredible with the teams. He's flying off screens. He's literally just replaced Klay Thompson. Klay Thompson was phenomenal for so long and then really started to slow down after he had those injuries. Buddy Hield essentially just picks up where he left off, and that's the role he has now. Buddy Hield has dropped 20 points, I believe, 3 times already this season in 5 games. He only had 1 bad shooting night, which that's just going to happen as a shooter. And even then, I think he still had like a 10-5-3, which if you're 3-point shooter who goes 1 for 8 and can still contribute 10 points, 5 boards, and 3 assists, how can you complain at that at all? The Warriors, I said, had a good offseason that they could be high, but I just thought the West was going to be too stacked for them to do anything. Obviously, it's early. Doesn't mean they're going to finish as the 3 seed. Doesn't mean they're going to, stay at this win pace for this long. But this team looks better than I thought they were going to, if I'm being completely honest. We'll see how it goes throughout the season as we really start to see teams separate, and it's not just like right now the 4 seed is 3-2, and all the way down to the 13 seed is 2-3. So it's going to be close for these opening weeks. So we'll see as it starts to separate where the Warriors end up. But they truly look like they could be a team in the top 6 out west right now. They do. They look like a team that could finish 5, 6, 4, compete with the Thunder, compete with the Minnesota, Denver, Dallas to be one of those top 4, and even top 6 and maybe top 4 seeds out west right now. So great start for them. I've got a couple honorable mentions. This is I'm gonna start off by saying an honorable mention to the honorable mentions. It's just because I've talked about them already. The Phoenix Suns 4-1, incredible start for them. They just continue to win, playing really solid teams. I'm gonna leave it at that because I would expect to talk about them more in the coming weeks because they don't just look like a surprise team; they look like a legit contender out west right now. Our 2 main honorable mentions, though. First up, we head back out east, and that is the Brooklyn Nets. 2-3 start for them. And I know, how is that surprising? The Nets are below 500, but I don't think anybody would have expected them to be 2-3. Jordi Fernandez has really changed the culture around there. And if you watch the game against the Nuggets, which I watched most of the fourth quarter and overtime, as well as bits and pieces of the third quarter, that looks like a team who knows that they don't have the talent to match up with some of those teams, but they are just so competitive. They're fighting for rebounds. They're fighting every single play offensively and defensively to keep themselves in games. And yes, they're not going to win a bunch of games. I don't expect the Nets to be a play-in team at all. I expect them to be a bottom 5 team. But similar to what I mentioned with the Bulls, this is the signs you want to see. You clearly have a coach who can establish a culture there. You clearly have players who care there. And even if you trade players away, you feel confident knowing even with this roster being as bad as it is right now, we can still fight for wins. So if you bring in even worse players and young talent and instill this culture in them, not only are you going to be able to start to build more wins from where you guys are now, but you start to really get players who want to come there. When you, let's say you're a Denver, right? And obviously the Nets aren't good enough for anybody at Denver to want to go to Brooklyn right now. But when you're like a team like Denver who goes and sees that, if you're a young and up and coming team and you're a free agent on Denver and you're like, Denver's probably not going to be able to pay me, where do I want to go? That's a team that excites you, right? That is a project who looks to be headed in the right direction. Hopefully a fast rebuild for the Nets, and it looks like it's going to be a fast rebuild. Obviously not, maybe to a level of a contender, especially with how stacked the East is right now at the top. But being able to build up and become a play-in playoff team again, I think is not going to take as long as we initially thought it would for the Brooklyn Nets. Also want to give a shout out to Dennis Schroeder. I believe he's averaging like 24-8 to start the season. I'll mention him more when we get into surprise players for the season, which should be an episode next week. But ridiculous start for Dennis Schroeder, ridiculous start for Cam Thomas. It really it's exciting. It's exciting if you're a Nets fan. You know you aren't going to be good, but this is where rebuilding is fun, right? When you're not a Wizards, when you're not a Pistons, and you feel like you really have something to look forward to for the next few seasons. The other team that I have as a surprise, and this one is a more negative one, is a team that the Nets just almost beat the other night, and that is the Denver Nuggets. 2-2 start for Denver. Again, it's early in the season to be reacting like this, but they're just 2-2, which just 2-2. And not only is it 2-2, like, oh, we lost to the Thunder and whatever. Like, yeah, you did play some good teams. You are 2-2 in your wins are beating the Nets in overtime. And I can't even remember who, the Raptors in overtime. That's your 2 wins. The Raptors and the Nets in OT. Are you really excited right now? And for the Nuggets, they're at the end of their window. I know Nuggets fans still think they're good enough to compete, and you absolutely are, but the window is closing right now. You have given out max contracts, and so if your core 4 doesn't work out, MPJ, Jamal Murray, Jokic, and Aaron Gordon, if you don't have a good bench, which we've seen Russell Westbrook struggle outside of the one game to start the season, this team doesn't really have a future. They've spent so much cap money that they're now not able to pretty much build anything outside of just draft capital. Drafting is really their only way to find players in the rotation now, outside of getting a Westbrook for 2 or 3 mil, whatever the hell it was. There's nothing really to look forward to as a Nuggets fan right now unless you win a championship. Like, for example, if you're a Mavs, if you're a Thunder, if you're a Timberwolves, you want to win a championship now, but okay, we're still going to be here for the next 4 or 5 years. For the Nuggets, you don't have that luxury anymore. That was your luxury in 2021, 2022, when, Murray would get injured. It's like, damn, Murray got hurt, but if we're healthy, next year's the year. That's not really the case anymore. You are really reaching the end of the window. So a 2-2 start, and it's overtime wins against the Raptors and Nets, doesn't leave you much to be excited about. Only thing to be excited about is Jokic absolutely going insane. 2 40-point games already this season, and maybe that's the one benefit to the Nuggets not being as good is Jokic, when he realizes the team needs him, can put them on his back. He's got 2 40-point games, just had like a 28, 18, 15, something absolutely ridiculous the other night as well. He went from not even being top 5 in the MVP conversation out just from the first week alone to immediately putting himself back up as like probably the favorite right now with the stats that he just put up for the last 3 games. So we'll see what he can do tonight. He and the Nuggets can do tonight against a good Minnesota Timberwolves team, although they also have gotten off to a slow start. And that wraps it out for our surprise teams. Our 2 honorable mentions were the Nets and the Nuggets, and our 4 biggest surprises were the Bulls, the Cavs, the Bucks, and the Warriors. Let's go ahead and get into our weekly notes. Starting first with just a little comment. This will go real fast. If you guys saw the Taylor Hendricks injury, you know what I'm talking about, but all I can do is hope that Taylor Hendricks is okay. He suffered a brutal injury playing against Dallas the other night. If you do not like seeing gruesome injuries, do not look it up. It is brutal. It's going to be a long time, probably until he's back. Certainly, I wouldn't expect him to be back this year at all. I'd expect the next time you see him to be at like training camp next year. That was an absolutely brutal injury, and I'm hoping the best for him and his build back after such a major injury. A little more positive news though, the retirement of Rudy Gay. Never an all-star in his career, but I think one of the more underrated careers throughout the era of the late 2000s all the way to the 2020s. 17 years. I think people forget how long he played in the NBA. 9 seasons with 18 plus points per game. That is really, really impressive. He had some great years with Memphis and Sacramento, putting up 20 plus points per game. He just was a really, really solid option for a very long time. So shout out to Rudy Gay. Like I said, a very, very underrated career. If you guys don't know how good he really was for how long he was, go check out his Basketball Reference page. It is really impressive to look at. Now let's go ahead and get into the current news. We've got a couple things I want to talk about. First off, Paolo Banchero with a 50-point game. If I'm not mistaken, that was the one and only 50-point game so far this year. The Magic look really solid, but it's going to be a tough month, maybe more, for them. Starting out 3-2, but Paolo goes down 4 to 6 weeks with a right oblique injury. That is really, really brutal news for a Magic team that looked like they were starting to really surge out east and really establish themselves. Obviously a long season, but they looked really solid to start it, and it's just brutal. When you have a young guy like Paolo, who really has been so dominant, it sucks to see him go out injured this young. It's not like LeBron where it's like, yeah, LeBron's probably going to miss, 10 plus games over the course of a season. This is a guy that you really want to see play 70 plus games, 75 plus games, and it's brutal to see it. Speaking of LeBron, Paolo looks eerily similar to LeBron if you watch him play. The physical dominance he has, specifically when he has a guy even an inch shorter than him, is absolutely ridiculous. It is bully ball. It is bulldozer in 2K, just shouldering off people, getting himself to the rim with ease. It's absolutely ridiculous as he continues to find that shooting stroke. Obviously, I think everybody saw the stat from a couple years ago where he shot like 7% from 3 over the course of like 20 games. When he finds that shot, he is going to be such a complete player, and the Magic are going to be such a good team for the next 5+ years. I'm very, very excited for them, but unfortunate news to hear that injury. The next little segment, I think, is actually one that's pretty funny. I originally put down what is going on with Wemby because he started out the season not good at all. If we look back at his game logs to the start of the season, he starts out going against Dallas, shooting inefficient, looking very tired, just not a great night. And I'm like, you know what? Dallas is a good team. We can move on from that. He plays Houston, takes an L to Houston, but he does put up a 14-20, 4 blocks. More of the Wemby we saw, but still not super efficient, and a lot of three-pointers taken, which I thought was quite surprising. And then he comes out and plays Houston, starts out really, really slow, and then he builds it up. And he comes out, puts up a 29-7, 3 blocks, and then, of course, the obvious one. Sorry, I read the Houston games. I read the Houston games backward. That is my bad. Let me look. Okay, I read the wrong games. Let me look back here. I think I'm in the wrong regular season. Game logs 24-25. There we go. Okay, well, ignore everything I just said. Now, let's go ahead and get into what he has done so far. The most obvious one is the 5x5 from last night. Let me just mention that. He gets 5 steals, 5 blocks, I believe 9 boards, 7 assists, 25 points. Ridiculous stuff from Victor Wembanyama. Ridiculous stuff. Not normal. Already just the third player in NBA history to have multiple 5x5s, and he is going to break the record for 5x5s. I think it's very likely he's going to get a quad dub at some point in his career. It's ridiculous. Now, let's get into the stats. I read the right stats, just in the wrong order. He starts out inefficient against Dallas, 5 for 18, 17 points, 9 boards. Not what you want to see. Then goes and plays Houston. Looks much more like himself, 10 for 17, 29 points, the Wemby we expected to see. And then we get back-to-back games that were just ugly. He plays Houston again, 14 points, although he does put up 20 boards. And then goes and plays OKC, who he kind of owned Chet last year, and not this time. 6 points, 8 rebounds, 2 assists, did get 3 blocks, but 1 for 5, 0 for 3 from 3 in just 27 minutes of action. Not great. And then he puts up the 5x5, so it's a very weird little segment because it was initially going to be Wemby does not look like the MIP at all. And then he goes and does that against the Utah Jazz team. So we'll see what he can do when he plays more real competition, because obviously the Jazz aren't a phenomenal team. They are currently the worst team in the entire NBA, the only winless team in the entire NBA. But Wemby 5x5 is absolutely ridiculous, but I think there definitely is some cause for concern right now. He did start slow last year and build up, and I think that's a very common thing for a lot of foreign players in the NBA. Luka, Jokic often start slow and then build up throughout the season. So we'll see what happens over the course of a full 82, but I think there's definitely some cause for concern with Victor Wembanyama. A guy who there is no cause for concern for is Jalen Green. I believe he was averaging 28, but I didn't see what his stats were last night. He is averaging 28 points per game so far. Some ridiculous games. I believe he had a 35-point game the other night. He started out going 28, then 22, 29, and then 36. Now, he is on the Rockets, who are not playing the best of competition, playing the Spurs, Memphis, and Charlotte. I didn't get a chance to see his stat line last night against Dallas, but this Jalen Green looks really good. I think 28 points per game is almost glossed over how ridiculous that is. That is all-star level scoring. We'll see what he can do over the course of a full year, similar to what I said with Wemby. If Wemby can build back over the course of a full year, if he can keep this up even remotely close, those are all-star numbers. Whether or not, I know he's not a great defender, and he's had his ups and downs with just awkward moments, kind of like we have with Jordan Poole, where Jalen Green just has those embarrassing moments. But if he can stay even remotely close to 27, 28 points per game, he gives himself a chance to be an all-star, although it would be very difficult to compete with a Shea, a Luka, Curry, Ant, Booker, all the stacked guards that the Western Conference has. But I think you're looking at a very, very big season for Jalen Green, a potential MIP season for Jalen Green, and it's exciting. It's exciting if you're a Rockets fan. It's exciting if you're just, a Jalen Green fan. I don't know how many there are out there, unless you are a Rockets fan. But if you guys have not, go check out a Rockets game and watch Jalen Green play. The defense obviously still needs some improvements, but the offensive side is very, very fun to watch. I already mentioned these teams in the last couple episodes, and that is the Suns and the Lakers. Two of the most entertaining games so far this season came from those two playing each other. And out west right now, the Suns are 4-1, tied for the 2 seed with Golden State. The Lakers, like I said, Started off hot and then had 2 straight L's, one to the Suns and then one to the Cavs the other night. But they do look really good. I think these are the two teams that you could have mentioned as surprises, or teams that I went going into the season kind of said they could surprise, specifically the Suns. I said the Suns were going to be really, really good, and they have proven that so far. And it's exciting. It's exciting because the West was so stacked last year. And even with that, we still said, man, the Lakers just aren't really that good. The Suns are good, but are they that good? And so now when you have the Grizzlies come back, you have the Wolves still just as good, Mavericks just as good, Thunder, all that sort of stuff, and you have teams like the Warriors and then the Suns and the Lakers building up, it makes it even more exciting. Just as a fan of basketball, to have even more teams at the top of the West makes it brutal because you're going to have teams that likely deserve to have a playoff spot that aren't going to be able to make it. But it's just going to be so fun out West. The Suns look great. The Lakers look great, and I think that as a whole is great for the NBA. Final topic on what was a little bit of a shorter episode today. We have just 2 undefeated teams remaining, one out East and one out West. We mentioned both already. The Thunder are undefeated out West, and the Cavs are undefeated out East. Simple question to end the day. Who do you guys think, and I'll say my answer, is going to be the most likely to be still standing undefeated when I come and talk to you guys on Monday? The Cavs play the Magic, of course, without Paulo due to that injury, and the Bucks and the Thunder play the Blazers and the Clippers. Honestly, there's a good shot that both teams are undefeated now and that the Magic don't have Paulo. I think it wouldn't be surprising if the Cavs rip off 2 straight wins against the Magic and the Bucks. But I think it's more likely that the Thunder are going to remain undefeated. There's, I would say, no way they lose to the Blazers tonight. And the Clippers could give them a fight, but I think the Thunder are just too dominant to really have to worry about a Clippers team. Thunder, I think, is the most likely to be undefeated come Monday. We'll be sure to check in and ask the same question if they're both undefeated come that Monday episode. You've officially made it to the end, and if you have, thank you guys so much for watching or listening. I really do appreciate it. If you want to watch me talk to you and you're listening on Spotify, all episodes are available over on YouTube. Link always in the description. If you are watching me on YouTube, want to go listen on Spotify, once again, link is in the description to go listen to all of those episodes. I should have more content coming out in short form on TikTok and Instagram, as well as a lot more content coming out in more set videos. I've got a video coming up on Anthony Davis that should come out in the next week or so. I've got sim ideas I've got planned up to do. So there's a lot of content coming out now that we are in the NBA season, and I'm so excited to get out to all of you guys. Once again, if you made it to the end, I really do appreciate it for you. I really do appreciate you for watching or listening, and I'll see you guys in the next episode of Around the World.